Hello everybody, we are gonna start our discussion on our video number 2 on the topic of the ISLM model for a small and open economy. So in this video we are going to talk about the big picture of the model. We are going to talk about exchange rate regimes, and then we are going to talk about the LM curve in the Mundel Fleming model and what moves the LM curve. So what is the big picture of this model? So this model, the ISLM model for an open economy, which we call the Mundel Fleming model, was developed to analyze the effect of monetary policy and fiscal policy for a small and open economy. So it's called Mundel Fleming because the economists who created this model, those are the last names of these economists. And by the way, one of them, Mundel, he won the Nobel Prize in economics. So the model was developed in the 1960s, early 1960s, as an extension of the ISLM model in order to analyze short-term fluctuations. Okay, so let's talk about the exchange rate regime. So there are two main exchange rate regimes, what we call the fixed exchange rate and the flexible exchange rate. So under the fixed exchange rate, there is a commitment by the central bank of a country to keep the parity between two currencies. So let's say, for example, Guatemala, the Central Bank of Guatemala commits to keep the exchange rate between the quetzal and the dollar at 1. $1 is equal to 1 quetzal. And the central bank is going to sell dollars or to buy dollars, or is going to inject dollars into the economy, depending on the supply and demand of dollars to keep the exchange rate. And then we have the flexible exchange rate, and the flexible exchange rate is basically that the market forces, the supply and demand, are going to determine the exchange rate. So Guatemala used to have an exchange rate, a fixed exchange rate regime in the past. Then it moved to the flexible exchange rate, and nowadays many countries have moved to a flexible exchange rate, like supply and demand type of model. Not completely, but you see a trend in the movement towards flexible exchange rate regimes. Okay, now let's talk about the LM curve and how the LM curve is going to move and what is going to move the LM curve under these two exchange rate regimes. So let's consider the first case, fixed exchange rate. And let's talk about Guatemala again. And we talk about Guatemala because Guatemala is a small economy and it's a relatively open economy. And the Mundel Fleming model was developed to analyze small and open economies. That's why we are talking about Guatemala. But the model could work for, or at least it was conceived to work for countries like Guatemala. There are many countries like Guatemala, maybe El Salvador, Costa Rica, Colombia, etc. So let's say that there is an incoming amount of dollars into Guatemala. Dollars come to Guatemala. Maybe some investors, maybe you go to Guatemala in a trip and you're bringing dollars with you. And let's say that Guatemala is under fixed exchange rate, which is not the case right now, but let's say it is under fixed exchange rate. So when you're bringing your dollars to Guatemala, you need quetzales in order to pay in the local economy. So of course, nowadays in many stores, you can use dollars, but this model was developed in the 1960s, and in those at the time, the dollar was like less prevalent as a currency in these countries. So you need quetzales, so you bring the dollars, so the central bank is going to buy dollars and it's going to give you quetzales in exchange. And when it gives you quetzales, the amount of quetzales is going to increase in the economy. So there is an increase in the money supply. So as a consequence of that, you see a shift to the right of the LM curve. So the LM curve is going to shift to the right. Now, let's think about like the opposite case. Let's say that you have Guatemalans that want to come to the United States. So they need dollars, right? They cannot pay with quetzales in the United States. Like if you come to the United States and you go to a store and you you show a quetzal, people are gonna look at you weird, right? This is a quetzal. We don't accept quetzals in the U.S. So when you are gonna come to the United States, you need dollars. You go to the Central Bank of Guatemala in case, let's say, they are operating under a fixed exchange rate. So you're gonna give quetzales, and they are gonna give you dollars. So the amount of quetzales in the economy is gonna go down. So that's gonna shift the LM to the left, right? So that's the effect that it's gonna have in the LM curve. Okay, so now let's think about the other case when you have a flexible exchange rate in one of these countries. So when you have a flexible exchange rate, the exchange rate is a price, right? It's basically the price of the dollar, and in that case, it's like the price of tomatoes, right? It's gonna be determined by the supply and the demand of dollars. So the Guatemalan Central Bank does not buy or sell US dollars. It's just the amount of dollars in the economy is going to be adjusted by the supply and the demand. And the LM is not going to be affected, right? There is not going to be any effect in the LM. Okay, so we have covered the main topics. And now we are going to stop here. And in the next video, we are going to talk about the IS and the LM curves together. And we are going to analyze the effect of monetary policy and fiscal policy in this scenario. Thank you.